Welcome to the BurlyFishing podcast, a podcast for anglers, hunters, outdoorsmen of all shapes and sizes and skill levels, and a podcast where we're going to discuss a lot of topics you guys might be interested in. On this episode, we're just getting introduced here, so I am talking with my buddy Paul Glass. We are fresh off the ice after a long, blustery, cold 11-hour ice fishing day, and this is our first episode. So just to set the bar a little low for you guys here, we're in a hotel room drinking some whiskey, having a conversation. I figured I would get the mics out and we'd go after this thing and get started. Today we're talking a lot about getting into fishing and essentially the outdoors in the first place. Where do you start? How do you start? How do you keep yourself coming back? How do you keep trying if you're not catching anything, if you're not producing, right? And we cover a lot of that. We discuss our own experiences. We talk about how we got into angling and into the outdoors in general ourselves, what our story, our background is. So I feel like there's some good nuggets in here for you guys. There's some good talk about the first essential pieces of gear that you need and how not to spend too much money or get yourself into trouble with maybe your significant other as you're getting started, right? So there's some good conversations here. It's a good time, just hanging out with my buddy, having a conversation that I think will be something helpful to anyone out there who's considering getting started into this or a little frustrated maybe with their first season on the water or out in the outdoors. So take a listen. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. It's something we're looking to continue. We're going to have a lot more conversations. We will try to get this onto a schedule where we can do this maybe weekly at the very most, monthly at the very least. And we want to hear from you guys. So let us know what you think about the content. Let us know if there's any topics that you would like us to cover or discuss or go through. And we're happy to do this, but we really want to focus on things that you guys are looking to hear. So without further ado, let me introduce my buddy Paul and I in a hotel room after eating some freshly caught delicious crappie and bluegill that we may or may not have cooked in the hotel room, allegedly, and just having some whiskey and having a good time. We're live with this podcast, which is unnamed.
Well, while unnamed, it does have direction. There is a purpose.
It does. This is true.
So, this would be like, the intent is this to be like a series of podcasts that someone can refer back to, or someone could start listening to. Being new into fishing or wanting to get into fishing or even just wanting to understand more about people who fish and like the whole, I'm going to call it a sport, but
it's a sport. It's really hard. I sported really hard today.
The sport of fishing.
I sported for 12 hours today.
My body feels like I sported.
My body feels like I sported.
I definitely feel like I sported.
If you actually think about that word now, you sported.
I sported. It's a verb.
So we were sporting here for 12 hours.
I sported hard.
You don't like the name I threw at you for this podcast?
What was
Fishing
it?
Buddies? Fishing Friends?
I was thinking like two dads.
Two dads? One rod?
But then it gets weird. Yeah, I don't know, man. I can't. I don't know.
Anyways, we'll come up with a name. In the interim name is BurlyFishing Podcast.
For sure.
So we will either keep that name or change it.
I think we start there.
But yeah, let's talk about...
Regardless of what it's called, the idea is that this would be episode 1. Episode 1, the focus...
Of 100.
The focus of which...
one of 100, go.
Yep, 1 of 100, at least, would be... I think like trying to understand how someone gets into fishing, talking about the ways that someone gets into fishing, understanding like, the progression of like, I think for a lot of people, there's like a moment where you're like, that's something that I would like to do. Because like, whether you've been thinking about it or not, there's like a moment where you're like, I'm going to go buy a fishing rod.
Is it interest to obsession?
Well, I think it's, yeah. It definitely gets there, but like...
I feel like where I think I want to start is like, I guess at what point were you like, I would like to do this?
For me, it was like very late in life, I would say. I feel like...
Because you didn't grow up fishing.
No. Like, I did fish. And so for me, like, the whole Burly fishing thing for me is like, my grandpa has a boat. It's called Burly's Barge. And my grandpa's nickname was Burly because my last name is Burlingame. So the whole Burly thing comes out of that. But he was an avid fisherman, and he used to fish a lot with my dad and my uncle. And like, my dad took me fishing time to time. We didn't really live like where I live now is like amazing fishing. There's ponds everywhere. There's rivers, like multiple rivers that produce amazing fish. And it's a great place to go. But like, I didn't have that. So we had like, we'd have to drive to the big lakes because Burly's Barge, my grandpa's boat, is a big lake boat. It's, it's 21 foot. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to take it on a small pond around me, you know? So, you know, take that out on the big lakes, and we would troll, and we would maybe fish for perch and stuff like that. And he had like downriggers set up and all sorts of fishing that I don't do at all anymore. But like, that was the fishing I knew. And that kind of fishing was the prep the boat, get to the launch, get out on the water, and troll for hours and hours and hours. So we would get up at 4 a.m. and like, here I am at like 11 years old going, this is the worst. I hate it. So unfortunately, that actually kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. And like, no fault to my dad. I'm not going to blame him for that at all. But like, you know, that was a type of fishing he knew, and that was a type of fishing he enjoyed, and it just wasn't a type that I enjoyed very much. So I kind of just didn't fish for a really long time, but I still had gear.
What's a really long time?
Like 15 years.
Yeah. 16
years. Like a long time. And for me, like, that spark came around when you and I went fishing. It was, we went out on the little puddle, this little reservoir type lake that's like right next to my house, which I love and I fish all the time.
Like this is a mile from your house?
Not even.
Yeah.
Like, I can load the kayak, drive with all my gear, drive to it, launch within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on the water in 10 minutes if I want to go.
And you have like a 120 pound kayak?
Yeah, it's a big old yak. But yeah, like, we went out and I didn't have anything good. I think I had picked up the kayak. So I had picked up my first kayak, which was $100, and I bought it off some dude in Muskegon. So it was like 45-minute drive, $100, cheap sit-in kayak. It was
10 foot?
It was 12 foot. I still have it. It's the 12-foot mainstream, the red, white, and blue.
It is.
Which is like, I was like, I don't care what this kayak does. I have to do this.
Is it float?
So I got that, and we went out. I was like, hey, I got a kayak, and also I have this old fishing gear that my dad had got me a billion years ago, like a gander rod and reel, and just actually, it was like after. So my grandpa had died. It was after that, and I had inherited some tackle from him, and I was like, so I have a tackle, I have a rod and reel. There's fishing line on it.
Yep.
And now I have a boat. And I was like, I know Paul fishes.
I had already had the Predator.
Yeah, you did. You were like, I have this dope boat. And I was jealous of like all your snaps of that boat. And I was like, take me fishing. Because remember, like I was telling you, I had this lake right next to me. I had tried fishing it a few times, and I was like, "There's no fish here."
Unsuccessful.
Prove me wrong. and like Paul goes, "There's fish there." And I go, "Disagree, but okay, fine." So I said, "Come out here, let's go fish." So we went out, and it was the day that we just like plugged, and not even from the boat was the funny part, but like we fished a little bit, and we caught a couple gills.
We hit some
like
of
out
the
in
deeper
the open.
water, and then we got up under those trees.
Yeah,
we got a few more.
Because there's a bunch of islands there. So we went to an island, and like the gills bed all around that section. And we were just ripping them, like every single cast. And we were just like, I was worm and bobber fishing.
Yeah.
Which, whatever, but we got like 30 gills. We cleaned and ate them.
Yeah, we did.
And it was amazing.
It was great.
And we actually just finished eating our catches for today in the hotel room, which was
to set the stage.
Dope.
We're in the what? We're in the northerly portion of the lower half of Michigan.
Is this technically northern Michigan?
We're above.
So we're at the biggest freshwater body inland body of water in Michigan.
Oh yeah,
it's Houghton Lake.
Yes.
And we spent 12 hours on the water. How burned does my face look right now?
Yeah.
Looks pretty slick.
My nose is torched. It was like 7 to, I don't even know what time we got off.
We're on the water at 7:30. It's
shit.
Is it 9?
Yeah.
9. Kill it.
Yeah, it's probably 11 or 12 hours.
It was a long ass day.
We took a 45-minute break to eat hamburgers.
Such a short break. We were like, we'll have the bison burger. We're leaving. And they were like, here's your bison burger and here's 5 French fries. Which, by the way, Houghton,
piping hot.
I just want to say, everything in Houghton everything we've eaten in Houghton so far has been piping hot.
Those wings were.
The wings were literally still on fire.
Lava rocks. Yeah.
The pizza was on fire. The French, but delicious. Everything looks like a dive bar, but the food's actually pretty good.
It was good.
Yeah. So anyway, we plugged some gills, and I was like, man, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I want to do that again.
Yeah.
And then I started doing it, and the fun part came when I was like, worm and bobber.
But I think we're gonna get
successful.
There. We're gonna get there.
Well, I'm saying this ties into my spark, man.
Oh, okay.
You gotta fan that flame.
No, bro.
but for me, that was like the start of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started going out in the kayak, but only for an hour or two. But for me, it was about, with the high stress of owning my business and wanting to not own my business and starting a job, which I currently work, where I mentor business owners. It's high stress. So for me, it started out as just getting out into the wilderness, just being outside, which is amazing. And I wasn't catching shit. But then I started getting interested in trying new rigs and new baits, and that obviously branches off into stuff we'll talk about in a little bit. But for me, it was that gill fishing trip, that was the initial spark for sure.
Yeah, because I feel like for a lot of people, like some people grow up with it.
Yeah.
Right, your parents or your grandparents or whatever.
Walker's going to.
Yeah. My son is going to grow up fishing.
100%.
He doesn't even have a choice, which is unfortunate.
The first birthday was fishing rods and bobbers and shit everywhere.
It was a 1-year-old's birthday party. And it was fishing themed. Okay. Yeah. Yep. He had a fish cake. Yeah. All right.
You like fishing.
But so some people have that, and so they have it already, right? They are exposed to it super early. Then there's people who are not, right? I feel like that's you fall into one of those two camps.
Yep.
And then there are some people who grow up with it, but they don't get tapped into it until later on.
Yeah.
And some people, it takes, I think you need to see it done the right way. I think.
Yeah.
By somebody who knows what they're doing, whether it's a mentor or you go on maybe you go on a guided trip or something like that. You know what I mean?
As long as it's a good one.
But you know what I mean?
We've
and then
been on good and bad ones.
Yeah. But you see it done, right? And then all of a sudden it's oh, that's rad. I could do this on my own.
Yeah, when you go with a guide who can just pick apart to you in just insane amount of water, you're how is this possible? But I mean, usually they obviously will fish bodies of water forever and ever, and then I'm so good at this body of water. Yeah. I'm sure you on home lakes, you could be I'll put you on fish. You do this.
It's not even a question. You're well, if we go to, I'm not gonna name it, but lake next to my house.
Right.
Yeah, it's not even a question.
I will put you on fish. What do you want to fish for?
Yeah, pick what you want.
We will go to this lake. We will go to this spot. Mm-hmm. We'll get that. And for me, I'm starting to get there because for me now it's only been, what has it been? Shoot, 4 years now? I think. When was that? That gill trip was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a while. Because, like, yeah, there was a lot of evolution.
4 is like the
from
most because I was living in Jackson at the time.
Yeah. I think it's 4. I think that was like 2016.
Yep.
So, yeah, so it's not, I've only been really aggressively doing this for 4 years. Yeah. Going out 3-4 times a week if I can. But, you know, once you start doing that, I imagine if you've been doing it for a decade or 2 decades, like a guide has been doing, like, they know that water so well.
But that's like what would turn you on, right? To fishing. Because I know for me...
Well, if you know you can get out there and get fish, like, isn't that... kind of the purpose of fishing is catching a fish, right?
But, like, when you see someone who's successful doing it, it makes you want to, like... It makes you more apt to do it versus, like... Well, no, it makes you, like, want to do it. Like, what? Like, if you were to list, like, the ways that someone gets into fishing, like, going on a guided trip, having a mentor, whether it's a parent, grandparent, uncle, friend, like, whatever, I would bet there's some people who, like, see it on TV. I would bet there's people who, like, see it on TV or on YouTube or whatever. People who are, like, crushing it, right? And you're watching someone be successful, have a good time, and you're like, I bet I could do that.
For me, it definitely ramped up with YouTube.
Yeah.
It's like just watching YouTube fishermen and going like, all right.
Like, watching people have fun is, like, fun.
Yeah. We make it fun.
Well, and then I mean, I mean, I would say, like, I don't know. Those are probably the main ways. I know for me, it was my father-in-law. We went to my wife's cottage in Canada, and
the epic.
It is epic.
The epic cottage.
Yeah, and the cottage
that you
itself.
haven't taken me to yet.
We're getting there. The cottage itself is not. The cottage itself is not epic, in terms of, like, it's not grandiose, but, like, when you're on a piece of water,
we're at the
like
American Inn and Suites right now.
No, we're not. We did not just cook fish at the American Inn and Suites.
Located on.
Damn it!
They don't watch this.
I hope not.
And if they do, sorry.
No, there's nothing. Everything's perfectly clean, spotless.
And if they
nothing
do,
happened.
Allegedly we did that.
Somebody did it for
Prove
sure.
it.
Maybe.
Find the evidence.
Don't look in the dumpster.
Don't look in the
dumpster. But yeah, we went to the cottage and like, I don't remember there being one moment. Well, first of all, my wife bought me my first fishing rod because we were going to go to the cottage. And that's what you do when you go to the cottage. Like, people go fishing. So she bought me a fishing rod because I did not grow up fishing. I think I was already 25. My wife's going to be pissed. I was in my mid to late 20s.
Why is she going to be pissed?
Because I'm not going to remember the day that I got a fishing rod.
It was...
Especially because it was
March
on my...
17th, 2014.
It was on my birthday.
Oh, well. Then you know the day. You just don't know the year, and that's okay.
I'm in trouble. So...
You're not.
So she bought me my first fishing rod. We go to the cottage. And her dad, Mr. Michelson, he was like showing me how to tie knots, but he was not...
Time out.
Yeah.
Who are you? We haven't even done intros.
Yeah, that's true.
This is 37 minutes into the podcast.
All
right. So Mr. Paul Glass. I knew this was going to happen.
Battery's dying.
Yeah.
Toast.
Time out. Battery change. Introduce yourself.
All right, so I'll do introduction. There's really not much to say. So I'm Paul Glass. I do a lot of fishing. I do a lot of kayak fishing. I do a lot of kayak fishing with Jeff. We do a lot of trips that kind of end in failure. Did you bring the battery over here?
They're right here. They were only in front of my face. It's fine. This is going to be an audio only. Fuck the video.
You're good. So I don't know. What else do I do? I do a lot of hunting too. So it's probably become, in like more recent years, 50-50 between hunting and fishing. I don't get to fish as much as Jeff, which is unfortunate for me. You got it?
It had full battery.
What was it doing?
It just turns off sometimes.
Perfect. So
just like the bite.
So we're back. But yeah, hunting and fishing. I do a lot of. I'm going to get into duck hunting.
Would you say you're an avid outdoorsman?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I read knot tying books, so that's kind of the.
I do have some knot tying books.
And then
I'm a rookie outdoorsman.
that's okay.
Working on being an avid outdoorsman.
I feel like in order to be an avid outdoorsman, you probably should have some sort of gun.
Okay, guy. Like,
I'm trying to get you to buy a shotgun.
my wife is so against guns.
Well,
Sorry,
you can
Rachel.
leave it at my house. Then I get another gun.
I'd be like, I don't have one.
But it exists with my name.
But it's at Paul's house.
All right, so I did my intro. You got to do yours now.
This is my channel, bro. Anyways, my name's Jeff.
There it is.
My name is Jeff. This is BurlyFishing.
Mm-hmm.
This is potentially tentatively named BurlyFishing Podcast.
I think it's good. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
welcome to BurlyFishing Podcast. This is 37 minutes into the podcast.
Episode 1 of 100.
Episode 1 of 100. You're not getting 101. It's not happening. There's no bonus episodes.
You have to come up with a new name.
But we've committed to 100.
Um,
BurlyFishing 2.0 is 101 through 200.
all right. Oh, I got one for you. Well, I think you already probably talked a little bit about that. What do you think is like, as you were first starting, like when you first started fishing, what do you think, what were some of the experiences that like are like flashbulb memories that like you can't get out of your head?
I mean, first of the species is usually like
Oh, like your first like bass or whatever.
any first species
Yeah,
really is
yeah,
like
yeah.
the biggest moments. But then you have, so once you like have caught the main species, like
What are the main species, Jeff?
fresh, all of them. So like for me, it would have been
Depends
like
on where you live, what the main species
right,
are.
exactly. But for where we are, so it's like
There
the
you go.
first largie, the first smallmouth, the first pike, the
Uh-huh.
first crappie. You know, oh, delicious room temperature pizza.
It's only a day old.
Yep. Day old room temperature pizza is how you do fishing trips, other than cooking the fish that you caught on the trip. So, yeah, I would say any first, but that bluegill day was huge.
Yeah.
After that was like my first pike was on a trip we were on.
Oh, dude, that was a big day.
That was a big day. Bass. So I mean, bass are obviously a little easier to catch, but
Well, only yeah.
just because they're aggressive. But
Well, and they're super prevalent.
yeah, I mean, there's, gosh, that's so hard because there's like so many moments, right? But I guess I would
but
say,
like when you were getting started, like moments when you were like, holy.
so all right. So on my lake, for example, at first, not now, it was really hard because I didn't have electronics.
Yeah.
But I had a boat, so I'm out on the water. I don't know what I'm doing because I don't know what's underneath me, right? So I had to just figure it out.
Yeah.
And luckily, it's like a fairly clear lake, so I could like look and see and start to understand what structure was
Yep.
and what foliage was and like how to fish it.
Yeah.
But I had to do so through trial and error because it wasn't like I was gonna be like, hey Paul, let's say this is the situation you're in. Hypothetically speaking,
If and or.
if you see a fairly rocky bottom, what would you throw? Let's say that it's blue sky conditions. The water is clear. No,
It's 68.3 degrees. Northeast.
I don't know the
wind coming
temperature.
up.
I didn't have electronics. So I had no idea, and I wasn't going to call Paul every 5 minutes, which would have been rude. So I was like, you know what? I need to figure this out. So I just started like trying different baits and like understanding how they move through the water and like starting to think how they might be presented to the fish. And then it's like when you throw something and you finally catch a fish,
Yeah.
you're like, did I do it? Did I figure it out?
Yeah.
And then you catch a second fish on the same thing, and you're like, yes, I figured it out. So like on my lake, it was so hard.
But what do you
because,
mean you figured it out? Because like I don't think people know, especially if you're new, like, you don't know what that means.
like if you catch one fish, it doesn't mean you figured it out, right? It means you caught one fish.
What do you mean you figured it out? What's it?
It being the behavior of the fish, like what they want to see, the presentation, the
Like on that day.
yeah, like
At that-
this day, this time, this temperature,
Yeah.
this light situation, this water
it's
clarity,
really
this
important.
depth, this situation in general.
But it's really
This
important.
is what they want because their behavior changes.
A lot of people think of fishing as like
Fish are fish, and they'll eat whatever is put in front of their face, and that's not true.
Yeah, they don't like most people who aren't like if you're okay. Again, if you're new, like you're talking to people who are specifically new, right? Most people
Sometimes.
No, I'm like right now for the podcast, right? Like this, like someone's
Only the pros listen to me.
Oh well, I'm in the wrong place then. So
We need to leave.
if you are new, I think a lot of people when they think about like what is fishing, they're like, oh, you are casting something and you're catching fish.
You throw it out, you reel it in, a fish bites it.
Yes, but like
that's not how it works.
Fishing, I think like when I think of fishing, I think of like the puzzle. Like I think the whole
it's all a game.
90% of it is figuring out. You get onto whatever river, piece of water, lake, whatever. You get out there and you're like,
That's why it's a sport.
how do you like? You have to figure out like what's going to work like for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from like the cloud cover, the temperature of the water, where you are, if you're upstream, downstream, whether you're fishing rocky bottom, silt, whatever, like all, transition, depth, shallow, like all
what
those
they
things,
eat in that area,
the color of the bait that you're going to throw, the time of year, whether or not they're spawning, whether they're bedded up, like all of those things are are going to create a situation, and like you have to figure out what is going to trigger a fish to strike whatever it is that you have for whatever reason. It doesn't always have to be feeding, right? Like salmon. You're just trying to with roe. They're not really eating.
No,
right?
they just want to
They're
kill other spawn, right?
Yes, and so it's like whatever it is.
Well, you have to understand that about that fish, right?
Exactly. It's the situation. So like that's really, I mean, at the core, that's ultimately what fishing is. Which honestly is super, super parallel to hunting.
And this is what figuring it out is.
That's what figuring it out means. Well, because
there's so much more that goes into it.
It's such a simple thing. Like, we figure it out. But like, you just, I mean, like by saying figure it out,
oversimplified.
that is what fishing is. Like that is like 75% of what fishing is.
So usually, like if we go out on the water, we talk about dialing it in, right, or figuring it out. And again, like if you catch a random giant freaking crappie, like today,
that was sweet.
I didn't figure it out.
No.
Because before that, I only had one tiny perch.
We figured nothing out.
And that was it. And then we caught no other fish for the rest of the day.
We got our ass kicked today.
Yeah. But like, okay, sweet. You had one giant crappie, bright spot, great moment, amazing, delicious also, very delicious crappie.
Super good.
But yeah, like we didn't figure it out. Like,
no.
If we had been like in the right spot at the right time with the right bait, and they had just been mowing it, and we were just pulling one after another, which we've both had days like that.
For sure. And you will.
Yeah, for sure. And like you won't always have that day, and that's okay. That's part of the fun. That's part of what makes this a sport. Is like I can go out on my lake, I can catch 0 fish. You're like, well, that sucked.
Yeah.
But then like within a week, I could go out and catch 30 fish. This has legit happened multiple times. Yeah. It's just like that meant that day, at that specific time, I figured it out.
Huh.
It was like, at this time, they really wanted to see the Ned rig. Which most of the time they do.
All right, so
on my leg.
So let's say you're new, and you've had that moment where you're like, I want to do more fishing.
Chewing moment.
I think there's a lot of like, I think that is like a tipping point for a lot of people, because a lot of people, it takes like some guts to do what you really need to do to get good at fishing, which is like
force yourself.
Just go out and do it. And people, like if someone came to me and they're like, hey, I want to get into fishing, you absolutely do, like, you do not need a mentor.
No.
That's really nice. It's really great to have someone that has a boat, has access to a great lake, has tons of experience, has tons of gear and tackle that you can use.
Well, they're gonna mess you up.
You 1,000% do not need that. I didn't have that.
Honestly, you don't want that.
In a lot of cases, sure. But in some cases you do. Like, for example, there's a lot of things that you can learn, even from somebody who's not that good, that eventually you'll figure out on your own if you really are getting out there. If they can teach you how to, like, tie a couple knots, if they could teach you how to cast, like that's what you're figuring. So like to me, if like I said, if someone came to me and was like, I want to get into fishing, I don't know how to do it. I don't really have that much stuff. I know exactly what I'll tell that person to do. If you don't have a boat, let's say you don't have a boat, you don't have a kayak, you don't have a lake in your backyard, whatever. What I did to get good, to get started, I literally just Googled public boat launches on rivers.
Smart.
And I Googled and found out where all the public lands are that are on both sides of the river public. I just parked my truck on public land, walked to the river directly. I had a rod. At first, all I had was one tackle box, like a Plano tackle box.
Same exact box.
I grabbed like a couple of lures. I had no waders. I just put on Crocs, swim trunks, and I literally had 2 lures with me. And I walked and I fished. And then if I lost those lures or needed something different, I had to walk back downstream, grab my crap, get something new. I usually would carry the box back up, and I would continue to fish. And I did that like in urban areas. I did that in like the middle of nowhere areas, but like tons of experience.
Yeah, and I think that goes a long way to talk about like confidence baits. Like we were talking about today.
Yeah.
Because like part of the learning experience is finding like things that you, I guess, one, you enjoy fishing, like you enjoy the action of it. So a good example would be like a jig. So if you enjoy like flipping a jig, it's a specific way of fishing. A jig is just like a weighted hook, essentially.
If you're new,
I'm answering your question, sir.
Answer it better.
So there's many different types of jigs, but let's just say it's like a basic one. It's going to be like a weighted hook with a skirt, right? And you're going to throw some type of plastic on it, usually like a creature. So you throw like, a craw or something. So you got like little flipping phalanges, little flappers, if you will. Just little pieces that are going to move in the water. They're going to create action. They're going to move water. They're going to incite a reaction from the bait.
Yeah.
But like, so flipping a jig, like a lot of people really love to flip a jig because the act of just, usually you don't like full cast it. You might be a little closer to where you're at and you'll either pitch or flip that weight out there. So it's just like a little flick of the wrist rather, which is fun to me. Like I really like it, but you'll pitch that jig into a spot. It's maybe 15, 20 feet in front of you at most. And then you're going to let it sit. You're going to pop it up off the bottom. But like the bite, the reaction you get out of that is pretty exciting.
So how do you get a confidence bait? And what is a confidence bait?
Yeah, so a confidence bait is just like a bait you enjoy fishing, that you know you can catch fish on because you almost always do no matter the water you're in.
So it worked for you once.
What? It worked for you once? I mean, if it worked for you once, but like you caught 30 fish, sure.
That's what I mean.
So like for me, a Ned rig is a confidence bait.
For sure.
Because
why?
I catch hundreds of fish on
What
Ned rigs.
was the day?
The first big Ned rig day was actually the day we went to with your brother-in-law Joe. We went to.
Don't say where you went. I want people to know about that lake.
We went up north.
We went to a lake in northern Michigan.
Nobody's gonna know that lake.
That's why
First
I
of all,
want to keep it that way.
It's called the Puddle.
Stop.
That's all you need to know.
Too much
no, that's all you. Any body of water is a puddle, essentially, to start.
All right, if we're gonna qualify,
it's a
Lake
puddle
Michigan,
to giants.
If we're qualifying,
a puddle
Lake,
to giants.
All right, but I don't want anyone knowing about this place.
I won't say the location of said puddle, but this.
We both caught 3+ pound bass in like
50 each.
It was crazy.
Day. That was a 100+ bass puddle.
It was stupid.
And we were just cranking them out.
No
yeah, exactly.
effort.
And so that was just a day that I was like, you know what? I threw like a whole bunch of stuff when I got there. I got there ahead of you guys.
Yep.
And then I was like, you know what? I've never caught anything on this Ned rig. So I'm going to throw it. So I did. And then I was just every cast pulling a bass out of there. It was absurd.
It was dumb.
It was absurd. Like they were just all about it.
So how did that make that a confidence bait for you?
for me, I was like, well, I can catch 50 bass in a day on like a random lake. So obviously this thing works.
Yeah.
And that day I started to learn like different ways to use that bait, like how to play it. You know, whether I learned about like dead sticking it. So you just let it sit and just wait. And like, that's how that bait works really well because it just sits upright in the water and it sort of moves with the current.
Which is super unique.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's amazing. And then I learned how to swing it, and then I learned how to like, you know, vertically jig it a little bit.
And you learned that they never die.
And I learned that specifically the Z-Mans never die.
For sure.
So like the Z-Man Ned rig never dies.
It's
so
unbelievable.
we fished like the same worm whole day.
Yeah.
And like the only way you lose it is if you lose the jig, like if it breaks off or somebody bites it off.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. So
I feel a lot better about spending like $5 or $6 on.
You buy an 8-pack, you're like, cool, I'll have this for 3 years.
A month. Yeah,
I still have the same pack of the copper truce. Like, I'll never run out.
Those do not look like they would fish.
No, they don't.
It's
called the TRD, aka the real
the
deal.
I've
done videos on it.
I know, you know what I'm saying though. Like they don't look like they would fish.
It's like a little.
The color.
It's half a Senko. It's like 3 inches.
Yeah, that.
And it's just a stick.
That color doesn't look like.
And that color doesn't look, but it's got chartreuse in it.
It freaking works.
And you know what they say about chartreuse?
Okay. Everybody knows.
Oh, there's a reason Yeti has a chartreuse line now.
Yep. So
anyways, it's a confidence bait.
Yep.
And I know if I'm on a body of water, specifically in spring, summer, and fall, not so much winter, obviously, if it's frozen, but even if it's not frozen, it doesn't work that well. But like spring, summer, fall, I know I can throw that, and I will probably get a fish.
All right.
River, lake, doesn't matter.
So let's go back to like just getting out there, right? Like I think that's the best advice.
You just go.
Right? You just go. You just gotta like
grab your shit.
Yeah.
And you go to said water.
Whatever you have.
Anything. I mean, I was fishing
whether it's bank fishing or
lakes.
Yeah, whether it's
like
bank
last
fishing,
week.
whether it's bank fishing or whether it's like getting the. I think those are the two things that someone can do if you have no stuff and you're new. Right?
And if you're, I'll say this: like if you're not sure, it's fair to be not sure if there's actually fish there.
Oh,
you can download an app like FishBrain or Angler or Google Map it.
Or you buy a $10 book.
Or you can buy, exactly. You can buy, what are those? A Sportsman?
I don't even know.
Gosh. Anyways, there's
They're
maps.
by state.
There's nautical maps. You can get depth charts for free.
Forums, dude.
Yeah, there's forums talking about it.
Like if you just need like a quick like.
If you know the name
what's
of
here,
if you know the name of the body of water, just Google it.
Yes.
And you can be like, hey, are there fish on blah 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 water?
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then the one thing you'll.
I promise you, there's fish there. By the way.
Oh yeah.
Like wherever you're at, whatever body of water it is, there's probably fish there.
Unless
it's actually
unless
a puddle
it's like
in your
a
driveway.
retaining pond or something. Like
yes.
even then.
Well, no, reservoirs.
Like even
crush.
a reservoir will. Yeah, it just depends. But yeah.
Yeah,
Farm ponds are murder.
Yeah, exactly. So like flooded ponds, reservoirs, drainage rivers, like dude.
But the bottom line is like, do whatever you think, like just in your gut, because it doesn't actually matter what you do.
Yeah.
But whatever you feel the most comfortable with in the moment, like, because I felt comfortable getting in the river.
Yeah.
But like, if you want, I just want to bank fish. Take a freaking chair out, take a box, whatever you got in it, worms, doesn't matter. It does not matter. And then just go do something.
Like if you just want to get some fish,
let me ask
a hook, worm, and bobber.
Oh yeah, you'll catch something.
You'll be
so
happy.
let me ask you this: were you, when you first got started, were you nervous? Like, was there like fear involved?
Fear,
to some degree. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, I don't think like fear is the right term though. I feel like there's always, like even today, there's this inherent level of stress of will I catch a fish, or you feel like I have to catch a fish, right? So like today, Paul gets the first fish. It's a giant. Fuck you. It's a giant bluegill,
nice bluegill.
like one of the biggest I've ever seen.
A solid bluegill.
And I go, cool. This is a sign of the day.
I'm done.
And then also I'm like, great. Now I have to catch a fish, because like, what if I catch no fish today? And what if Paul catches 100 fish today?
I don't have that.
You never have that? I always have that. That's because that's not a fear though. It's just like a stress
A
of
stressor, yeah.
ugh, I need to catch fish
Like
now.
somebody who's new will definitely feel like if they don't catch fish when they go, that like
It's a waste of
they were
time.
unsuccessful. I disagree. I used to go to the river all the time and get skunked, and I still get skunked all the time.
Yeah, we got skunked tonight.
I get skunked a lot.
Yeah. So I'm not afraid of getting skunked. I don't enjoy it.
No, nobody does it.
I think I try to make the most of it. So like, if it's a shitty day,
yeah,
and I'm just like, this is not happening.
Yeah.
Usually I'll just try something new.
Sure.
So I'll be like, oh, I have this
It's free time.
random crankbait I've never thrown.
Yeah.
It would be great to throw this, and nothing else is
I had a
working.
10-inch worm. I don't know why anyone.
Dude,
uses
the
it.
Mondo worm?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a bag of Mondo, and I was like,
I have that bag now.
yeah, I know, because I was like, dude, there's not a scenario where I'm gonna use this. Have you used it?
That was the beer Senko day.
Have you used it yet?
I used it that day.
We cut them in half.
No, I did not.
We threw a full Mondo.
I threw the full Mondo.
I think the only place you're supposed to use a Mondo is like on a ledge, where there's like an actual like.
In Texas.
Yeah.
Where there's
yeah.
freaking giants.
And like there's
100%.
one down there, or you're like very confident, and you're like they won't go for anything else. Like
Or
I
if you
think
see
that's
them
the
bedded
only.
and you see just like a giant female. And
I
you're
think it's
like,
on like ledges only.
yeah.
I think that's like pretty much the Mondo's shtick.
So
Regardless.
So Paul had this bag of, was it 10 or 12?
10. I think it was 10s.
So of 10-inch worms,
Wow,
plastic
yeah.
worms, artificial lure.
They're huge.
And we were not getting anything other than your popper bass.
Yeah.
Right? So it started with, we each got like one bass.
No. I smoked early one of my almost a PR bass on the fly right out of
That's
the
what I'm
hole.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you got
No,
that bass.
that was a different lake. So the one that you're talking about
This was
on
the
popper.
one that's like, it was like it had a channel in the middle. And it
Yes.
rained that day.
That's-
And everybody
so
left.
The
and
one
we
that I
stayed
caught
and
was
we caught
on.
fish.
It was not on a popper. It was on a.
It was on a
joined-
fly?
It was on a. Yeah, it was on a fly.
Okay.
Jointed, like a shiner pattern. And it was like the coolest thing because like, the fly was like, it looked like it wasn't moving. It was probably 10 feet underwater, and I could see it. And it was like, I could see it flowing.
Fly fished.
And I was just like, wait a minute, like, this is unbelievable. Like, I couldn't believe how far down. And then there's just like a shadow, like, painfully slowly, like, approaching it. And I was like, dude, that's a bass. And I just kept stripping at like the exact same pace, but like ungodly slow, like painfully slow. The whole thing felt like it took 5 minutes. It was probably 6 seconds.
I think that's a good lesson too, is be slower than you
for
think.
Sure. Yeah. Whatever you're thinking, it's slow.
I feel like when I started fishing, I fished really
Super fast. Yeah.
and I still fish fast. But like,
fly fishing will teach you to slow down.
you have to slow down.
Dude, this thing, it was like it was like an out of body experience because of how far down it happened away from me. And like, the craziest thing was like, the bass came up, sucked in the lure, and it happened so slow, like when I was watching it, but then my rod felt like it just got absolutely jacked, like almost out of my hand.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing. But yeah, I caught that fish, and that was like dry for what, like 4 hours or whatever.
Yeah, so you did that, and then I caught one on a spinnerbait, and then that was it.
Then I switched, and I took the fly rod out and caught like a ton of bluegill for us to eat.
You were popping bluegill for munchies, but we were fishing around trying to get some bass.
We were looking for bass and
Nothing
pike.
was happening.
Yeah.
And then you were like, "Oh, here, throw these," and I was like, "Okay."
Well,
I didn't care, so I Texas rigged it.
But I knew there were gonna be bass at that drop off because right where that choke point was,
saw
where that little
some big
channel
ones.
was.
That was the one that had a lot of like sunken.
Yes.
They
were like containers and shit. They were. That was like on the other end of the lake.
It was like they're there, and we were seeing them.
Yeah.
They weren't doing anything.
No.
But
it was raining. It had started to rain, and we were gonna go in. But then those two dudes are also in kayaks.
There was like 2 or 4 people that pulled ahead of us.
They decided to go. We were like, "Nah, you go ahead," because it was raining and we were fine.
It was a tiny launch point, so
yeah.
we had to wait.
It was all muck.
They had to like back up their truck.
Yeah, they were doing all that, and I was like,
sitting there.
I was like, let's go fish that point because you could see where like the sand
It
was
was like
coming
right
out
past
to a
the
point.
channel, and it dropped off. Yeah.
And then we dropped the beer Senko on them.
So What happened was we ended up
Talk about a
rigging.
confidence bait.
Yeah, so a confidence
confidence
bait is the wacky rig, right? So the wacky rig is like the simplest thing ever. You just take a plastic worm,
Any hook. Doesn't matter.
any hook. We were using just a jig. It was like
We needed weight.
a basic lead jig with an eye.
Yep.
And what happened was like in my cup holder, because we had been drinking a little bit, because you gotta make it fun.
It was a fishing trip.
Yeah, it's a fishing trip, man. You gotta have some sunny bills. So we were sunny billing it up, and beer had spilled into the cup holder of my Predator,
And
like,
you were soaking in worm in it.
like there was a worm just sitting in there. So this worm had just absorbed like
That's what
an
cup holders are
entire
actually for.
an entire Bud Light, and I threw it on the jig, and I was like, "Hey, guess what?" Because we hadn't been catching anything. I was like, "Hey, Paul, beer Senko,"
Yeah, man.
and then I cast it out, and what happened?
Instant.
First cast,
Yeah.
and second cast, and third cast.
Well, then we fished the rest. I mean, we were there till the afternoon.
Dude, we stayed there forever. We didn't plan on staying there forever,
No.
but that's just the thing. It's like you go to a body of water. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes something happens. Sometimes a lot of something happens, and you might not plan on being there all day. But like, why would you leave productive water?
Oh, I agree. All right, so let's say now you're starting to get out. The other thing I would say is like as you're going out, and this kind of goes along with what we were talking about, like don't feel like you're gonna catch like 22-inch brown trout in like the Ossabaw River,
Why?
because that's not a place to start. Like the place to start.
What do you mean? I don't get it.
Well, I guess the point of that is like, especially if you're new, like don't feel like you need the bar. The bar should not be.
Lower the bar.
Yeah, it shouldn't be super, super, super high. Like don't go to a place where it's like very challenging to fish, and if you can avoid it, and like don't expect to catch like 600 fish every day that you go out. Like adjust your expectations, one for your skill level and two for where you're fishing. So like,
Yep.
I think bass are a great place to start because you're gonna have some success. I think I think a great place to also start is using worms or minnows because you're gonna learn a lot, and it's not expensive. And so like you're gonna get a lot of experience. You're gonna learn how to hook and keep fish, like on the line. You're gonna learn how to cast.
Right.
You're gonna learn how to like manage your time, manage your resources. Like you're gonna learn how to like where to cast, that whole thing. So like there's nothing wrong with worm and bobber fishing, but like don't go out and be like, okay, if I don't catch like a 50-pound flathead, like I didn't have a good day.
I'd be pissed.
So I think that's important.
I was pissed in the beginning.
So I guess like the next thing, like after, like let's say you've had your mentor or whatever that got you pumped about it or whatever that start was, the spark was, and then now you're kind of fanning the flame by like going out, right? And you've done that, like you're getting out, and now like to me, like the next thing you're doing is you're starting to buy some gear.
Oh God.
I know, but like it's real. I mean. Let me ask you
This is where the addiction kicks in.
This is this is where it starts to feel like an addiction because like initially you're just blowing time, but once you start blowing money, like it's a problem.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Okay, what is your biggest regret purchase?
Oh.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I was trying to think of my answer.
Do you have one?
No, I was trying to think of one.
I
don't know
You
if I
make
have
me
one.
answer first so that you could think of it?
No, yeah, pretty much.
Oh.
I'm
Classic
sacrificial
move.
lamb. Probably my biggest regret purchase.
I honestly don't think I have one. It's
okay,
probably like some lures, but like that doesn't matter.
I like sort of wish that I had not. I sort of wish that I had. Well, I guess I didn't even know about it at the time. I wish I had like. So investing in my kayak, and don't get me wrong, I love my kayak.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that I had just been like, you know what, maybe I'll just get like a really cheap one, and then
Jack it out.
Then go and buy like the Pro Angler like 5 years later.
Like what I did.
And like saved up for it.
Yeah.
Because I have my Predator and I really, really love my Predator.
Right.
But I would really like to have a pedal kayak that is like top of the line.
Right.
And I do not want to spend like $7,000 on it.
It's not $7,000.
You and I both know that what is it? They're like 4 or 5.
I got mine for $3,000.
You got yours for $3. They're
Mine was
$4 or
$3.
$5 list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you spend $5,000, do you know how easy it is to spend another $500 on one of those?
I'm about to do that this spring.
You don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
You just show up and you can drop another $500.
Like, all right. So I also had a Predator.
Yeah.
This is the Old Town kayak, the Predator. I had the 13. You had the
I have
MX.
the 11 and a half. I have the MX.
Yeah, the MX, which I like the MX better.
I
by the
love
way.
that boat.
But I had the 13, but I bought it used, and it was $800,
Yeah.
and I actually sold it for $800.
Yeah.
So I don't regret it at all.
But you got lucky with that a little bit. That's a lucky find.
I mean, yeah.
Someone selling even an old
Yeah.
Predator for
I
less
looked,
than
I
$1,000
looked
is
really hard.
dude. That is like rare. Yeah.
No, 100%, 100%. But it was a great kayak.
I
Like,
wish I
caught
had
my
done
first pike in that kayak.
I wish I
like,
had done that.
Yeah, look for it used. You mean?
No, I just wish I had bought not as good of a kayak, not knowing that there was one that was like, or I just went and bought a
See,
blind.
now, so I made a video about this, and I mentioned you should buy a shitty kayak first.
That's true.
And I got like wrecked on that.
That's dumb.
Like in the comments, people wrecked me on it.
Why?
They were like, "Why would you buy a shitty kayak when you? I mean, if you just buy the best kayak,
Well, that's
then
what I
you
would
don't
do
regret
otherwise.
any purchases.
That's what I would do
or
otherwise.
Purchases.
There's two reasons though that you buy not as good of a kayak. One, you may not like it as much as you think because kayak fishing is very challenging,
That's what I said.
and it's very like
Thank you for the validation. This guy says
the,
it sucks.
The HMR St. Croix, I think it's St. Croix.
You have one,
I had one.
and you didn't like it.
I think I still have it actually. I do not like it.
I was pissed that I bought the.
It doesn't cast.
The Ike rod.
Oh yeah.
I told you that.
Yep.
So the Abu Garcia Ike rod, which is like this sexy purple hologram color.
Yeah.
It like you can't like the braid line on it kept getting wrapped around the eyes like no matter how I cast it. And it was like every single cast. It was so annoying.
But the price is what really gets you though.
It was $150.
That's brutal. Yeah.
And then it snapped in half on a like 3-pound bass.
That's just.
And I was like, okay, cool. So I took it back to Cabela's and I was like, here you go. I would like my money back. And they gave me my money
God.
back. So
All right. How
like
about this? What's your best purchase?
the best purchase I ever made was my Hobie, hands down.
Wow.
Hands down. It has changed the way I fish.
I would say the same thing about my kayak.
Yeah. Like the
That's
boat.
That's over by. It's close, but buying that fly rod, the first fly rod I bought was
Okay.
because it was like $150 total for the whole
Is
package.
it the Cabela's one?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
RLS or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's I would
That
say
changed everything for me too.
top one for me would be the Hobie, and then like below that would be my Revo SX reel and the SLX because.
Then what's your best value? Because like those are all very
The
expensive
SLX.
things.
But I got the Revo on sale for $129, and the SLX is $100.
The SLX is good value. So that's your best value purchase as a reel,
For reels,
just in general.
in general, of fishing.
Fishing, yeah.
Fishing in general was the boat because I got it for like $1,000 off.
Your best that's your best value.
Yeah, they hooked me up, dude.
Wow.
So like,
Crazy. I'm very
I got
surprised by
hooked
that.
up.
I'm very surprised by that.
I would say like when it comes to reels, my favorite reel hands down is the SLX.
Yeah.
But also the main reason that I think that's a high value is because I could not cast a bait caster before the SLX.
Fair.
And then I got it and I was like, now I can cast a bait caster reel, and it changed everything. But now I can also cast like shitty reels. So it just I learned how to like dial that in.
Yeah.
Like how to cast that, how to set the drag, how to set the spool tension, and like cast without bird nesting every single freaking cast.
I told you that one year. I was like, okay, I'm literally buying a bait caster
I do
and a
remember that.
crappy rod, and I'm just like
Learning
I'm gonna
it.
figure this out.
Yeah. But when you're getting started, do a spinning reel. I'm gonna say it. Do a
I
spinning
think you
reel.
go either way.
It for your
When
first
you don't have
year.
any, when you don't have any bad habits, like how like I would have figured it out. You don't know what you're doing it wrong. Like you would just.
But are
learn
we
how to do it.
saying people new to fishing are like they're gonna like it or they're gonna test the waters? Because for me, if I had had a bait
that's fair.
caster, my first couple months of fishing,
where you're just
I might not be
untying.
fishing now.
That's fair.
I might have been like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
I can't figure this out. It bird's nest every single time.
You're right. You're probably right.
I would have hated it. But I mean, again, that's my opinion. Like that's
yeah,
me
you're
personally,
right.
maybe.
They
But
are more expensive, I think, in general.
what are baitcasters? Yeah.
I think they are.
Because you'll want to get a decent one.
That Abu is
But you
cheap.
can get the Black Max for
Black
$39.
Max. I think I have 2.
Yeah.
And I have
Spinning
Silver
reels
Max,
are
I think,
not.
floating around somewhere.
But I mean, like, if you get a Shakespeare full rod and reel setup
That's
with line on,
I'm
you
not
can
even
get
gonna
that
get. I'm
for
not
$40.
even gonna get into gear because like that's a whole podcast on its own for fishing. All right, let me ask you this.
Okay, out of gear.
All right, so
Shifting gears.
so let's say you're starting to get some gear. You put the time in. You had your flash moment, so you're kind of up to this point where. Let me ask you this. Have you ever thought critically about what it is that you actually like about fishing?
I said it. Being out in the wilderness, being away. For me, it's a flow state. For me, it's like I get to stop thinking about everything in my day to day. I don't have to worry about work, stresses, finances, family, like anything. I just have to worry about what are the fish going to react to today, and trying to dial them in. That's it. That's why I love fishing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's ice fishing, fly fishing, bass fishing, pike fishing, whatever. Like anything out there, and I'm sure it would apply to hunting if I hunted. But it's same thing.
I feel like there's more than that because let me ask you this: a day like today, got our asses kicked today. What makes you stay out there? We went ice fishing today. We caught.
I believe we did. I think we tried.
I was on the ice for sure.
We were on the ice,
so
with lines and water.
So we went ice fishing today. We went for a very long time. We did not have a lot of success. We had some, not a lot.
Yeah, I caught 2 fish in 12
what
hours.
makes you think like okay? We went out and it was like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We went to get food.
Yep.
What makes you go back out there? Well, it was like 5. We
The
got done at
potential.
5 because we got back at like 5:30. It was like 6 o'clock. Right, we were an hour before the sun went down.
Yep.
So, what, what makes you feel like you know what? I'm tired. I just ate. I just had a tall, cold beverage that I could repeat
Delicious.
that on my own
Many times.
in my hotel room. I already caught some fish. Like, why are you going back out?
Yeah, that was
So
after
what,
the
like
slab
for like
crappie.
3 hours? Like, what makes you be like, oh, I'm gonna do that?
The potential. For me, it's like, if I don't go back out, would I be missing out on something amazing? Like that crappie.
That was so freaking nuts.
We were going in. We were leaving.
I had a bowel movement that needed to happen.
Somebody had a BM, and we were like,
I needed.
let's go. And on our way out, we were like,
We should hit these holes again that we already dug.
yeah, we actually, yeah, that's right. We went back to
I was like, man, maybe we should try these.
holes
It
we
was like
dug earlier, and we were like, yeah,
We were on perch. We were getting into perch on those.
right? So yeah, it's always about the potential. Like, what could I possibly miss? Could there be, a fish of a lifetime?
Yeah.
The biggest crappie I've ever caught, and maybe ever will catch in my whole life, could have been missed if we had gone in.
Had I not been such a soldier.
Had you not just held that BM in and just pretend you don't need it.
I'm taking at least 90% of the credit.
You can have all the credit.
You
put me on that crowd. You put it in my hands. That's the only way that happened. Is because you just sucked it back in.
Soldier on. Oh man. I will say this. One of the coolest things about fishing is like right when you least expect something to happen, something bad shit happens.
Yes, exactly.
I remember I was fishing after work one day, and I had waded up the stretch of river. It was on the Kalamazoo.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I was working at Battle Creek, and I had never been there before. I had one rod. I had like my sling pack with like literally nothing in it. Mm-hmm. I had been doing paddle tails on jigs most of the day. I had caught like 5 or 6 like pretty nice smallmouths. I caught a sweet pike, and like I thought about keeping it. I probably should have. I had caught a sweet pike. I had a video. I still have a video of me releasing it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, what a great day. The water got so deep, like I could not handle it, and so like I was in dress clothes. So I was in my waders, and so I turn around, I'm walking back, and I'm just kind of like blindly casting, because I had already trudged through that water. Yeah. And when I think new people for sure won't realize this, when you walk upstream, your silt and all the stuff you're kicking up is like going behind you, so you're not like scaring fish by like and they don't like to be in silty. Most freshwater fish don't like being in salty water because it gets in their gills and stuff.
We often cast our way back, but like almost never does anything happen.
Yeah, nothing really happens because you've already disturbed all that water. Yeah. And those fish you've already disturbed those fish by passing through their area. So I'm like just randomly casting back, and I remember I'm walking up to where I had walked out, and there's like a little like a ditch that I had walked up, and I look at it and I'm like, oh, there's like a little pocket like right behind. Like literally like attached to like where I'm planning on walking out, where I had walked in like a few hours prior. And like one for the road. So just like last cast, right?
Should we explain one for the road?
No, not yet. No one's ready for that yet.
So Episode like, 27. Yeah,
so,
got it.
So I'm OTR. And I flipped that thing right in there. And then I flipped the bail, and literally right when I flipped the bail, I'm like fish on. I'm like, oh sweet. So I'm reeling in. I'm like very surprised, dude. That thing, I had my trout net because that just easily clips onto my sling bag. Barely fit into it. Smallmouth.
Wow.
It was a 3-inch paddle tail.
Yeah.
On like an I forget what size jig, but like a ball jig.
Yeah. Legitimately,
this looked like a 1/2 inch in this thing's mouth. It was huge. And I was like, I thought I'd already had a good day, and I could not believe what had just happened. Yeah. Could not believe it.
That's 100% it. That's why I always stay out.
Fishing on the break wall at the cottage.
Yeah.
Someone had given me a 1950s like knuckle buster, one of those old steel like reels.
Oh, okay.
So I had refurbished it, and I had refurbished I bought like an old like vintage Zebco bait caster, put it on there. I bought like one of those little Panther Martins, like just to like do, you know what I mean, like put it together. And I was like, I'm gonna leave this at the cottage, and like this will be like a cool thing that I'll use when I'm bored.
Yeah.
So I got bored. I decided to use it one day. I put on. It's really hard to cast at first because there's all the things that you have in a bait caster that are you have none of those things that help you.
Yeah.
And so I had like a big heavy weight to like really pull the line out. I had like 12-pound braid on it. Dude, I cast that thing out. First cast I ever cast on that rod. I put a big spinner bait on it. Mm-hmm. I caught the first muskie anyone's ever caught off the break wall. I got a freaking muskie with the first cast off the break wall. It was, that is, and like you'll see stuff. Bald eagles, deer will blow at you all the time, which I think is really cool. You will see fish jump, which is something I feel like most people have never seen.
Yeah.
Most people just never seen that.
They always jump when you're casting somewhere else, though.
For sure.
I'm over here.
I remember one time
okay,
I was in some trout water that was like on my way home from work back in the day, hitting on the way back home from work. I remember I was like tying a knot, and I was like trying to be all stealthy, and I didn't really think I was being, because I'm not that good. I wasn't that good at waiting. A trout, literally like very still water, a trout just like slipped out of the water and like snatched something and like slipped back in. Dude. And was never to be seen again. And this was like 10 feet from me. And I literally was like, I'll never forget that moment. I was just like, that trout, I've been trying to catch them for like a half hour. That one was literally 10 feet from me, and I had no idea. And it just decided, like, I'm going to eat this right now. Yeah. Right. I was
don't know what you're throwing. Remember that sturgeon busting on the muskie trip?
Oh, my God.
Just
sturgeon breach was...
straight dinosaur breach, like 5 feet in the air.
And I just think that goes towards like not only like not wanting to miss like something, but like understanding that like there's a value to like being outdoors.
Oh yeah.
And like if you're not not that you have to hunt or fish or whatever. I mean, you can like bird watch or hike or whatever, but like if you're not out there, like you can't have that experience. This is straight up, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take type deal, right? Like if you don't, because sometimes it's really hard to like, I'm gonna wake up at 4 a.m. My wife's gonna hate me for it, or my significant other is gonna hate me for it.
Try not to put yourself in this position.
There's nothing you can do about it, and you're like, I am tired. Like I don't want to do this on a Saturday when I could like drink coffee and eat pancakes and hang out with my family. Like you're actively like it's a big chunk of your time.
But like, what is the feeling of joy?
Is it dead now?
I think it's dead.
It's gotta be on now. Alright. There's lots more to talk about, but I will say this. If you're new to fishing, the most important thing that I would say, if you're going to take away one thing, the most important thing, the only way to get good at fishing is to go outside and do it. It doesn't have to be by yourself. I would think that you're going to learn more by doing it yourself. But like,
I like fishing with friends.
I like fishing with friends a lot. But regardless of how you do it, it almost doesn't matter. The most important thing is like set aside the time, make a concerted effort to like go out and just go fishing. I see the screen in the mirror.
I got switched to camera mode. That's why.
Oh, nice. All right, yeah. Well, like I was saying,
3, 2, 1, try again.
The most important thing, if you're gonna take one thing away, as like being someone who's new, one, just make sure that you're actually going out and doing it. Because I think the time that I actually look back on and the time that I think of like fishing now, what were those times when I was in the river, like by myself, having those experiences, making tons of mistakes, but like developing my own style of fishing and just learning on my own. And also adjust your expectations to the point where like you're gonna have a good time no matter what when you go out. Like if it's I just want to like get my feet wet today, take the W. If it's like I just want to see something cool, like a lot of times if you're fishing a river, especially in the evening, you're gonna bump turkeys, which I feel like people never put those two things together. That's like a huge thing. Find something like that, right? That like gets you pumped up. Like, or I just want to see one fish, or I just want to catch one fish. Like, adjust your level of expectations to where you're going to enjoy it.
Yep.
I think if you do those things, like, there's almost like no way that you're not going to have success at some point.
Yeah, 100%.
Over time.
Over time.
Yeah, like over time. Like if you go out, the other thing too that I think you mentioned this earlier, you kind of have like a target number of days that you want to fish in a year.
Yeah.
I know I have a target. It's like not as good as when I'm never going to achieve that because I have a 1-year-old. But like, you know, think about like the number of times that you may be able to go out and like be like, okay, 1 day a week. If you went out 1 day a week for like a whole summer, you'd actually be doing pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
Especially as like a new angler, whatever, fisherman, fisherwoman.
You
whatever.
learn every day that you're out there too, right?
Dude, so like that's what I'm saying. So like, you know, if it's 1 day, if you're like, I can go for like 4 hours after work on Fridays.
Yeah.
Like that's the minimum. I'm just gonna do that. Like do that.
Yeah. Mine was 100 days last year. It'll be probably the same this year. 100 days.
If you think about how many 100 is when out of 365, that's
it's a lot.
That's a shit.
That's a lot.
It never seems like a lot.
No, you say 100 days. This is what happened last year. Is I was like, oh, it's only 100 days.
Even 30 days is like kind of a lot.
But then like I got into it and I was like, I'm at 27 days.
Yeah, dude.
Holy shit! Like it's a lot. It takes a lot of time, but I think also just like you to piggyback on what you said, like don't like overdo the pressure on yourself to have to catch a fish. Like just because you go fishing, it's called fishing, not catching for a reason.
Yeah. We go on fishing trips, not catching trips.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As much as I wish they were only catching trips.
I'd love to go on some catching. I'd love to go on some catching trips. That's like what the guided is supposed to be.
Well, you pay a guide to go on a catching trip.
That's the idea.
You take yourself out to go on a fishing trip, right? And even on a paid guided trip,
you're doing a lot of fishing.
You don't always catch fish, right?
Yeah, like catching.
So it's like, at the end of the day, like, don't put the stress on yourself and try not to get yourself in trouble with your people's, your spouse or significant other.
Yeah, that's
like work out an agreement where it's like, this is something I enjoy doing. You go do something you enjoy doing, and then we can both do things that we enjoy doing away from each other for 4 hours.
If you have children, you've got to know that balance.
And also tell them that you still love them more than fishing.
On the way out.
I still love you.
I guess the last thing too, though, because I'm assuming we're gonna talk about gear at some point in another episode.
Oh yeah, we have 99 more episodes.
I think you could do a whole, you could do a whole set of episodes on like jigs. But I think when you're buying, if you're gonna go buy your first gear, or like pieces of gear, like the main things that you have to have, like the most important things, I think, like the minimum you can get, like the absolute minimum you can get away with. I think a 6-foot. Medium action, like medium power. Doesn't matter whether it's fast or action, doesn't really matter that much. But like a medium 6-foot spinning outfit, you want to spend, I would say the minimum, like if you're getting like a GX2, a Shakespeare GX2, $50 for the rod. Yeah, it's a great rod though. It'll last you forever, and you can use it for anything. And then, what are those rods called?
Wait, the
GX2s,
the ugly sticks.
Ugly stick.
Oh, those are $40. I was talking about the whole. Well, if you get it with the reel, it's
don't
like $50.
Get it with the reel. I recommend not getting it with the reel.
So, what reel would you recommend?
Again, it's like the bare minimum, but like getting something that's good that's gonna last you like well into like your medium. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like what's a value? That rod is probably the best rod value out there.
An ugly stick GX2.
Ugly stick
both
GX2.
Have like 7 of them.
I have a bunch. I would get a 6-foot medium. Yeah. For the reel, I think you go a lot of directions. Like almost, I think just make sure you spend $50.
So a Fluger President.
That if you can get a Fluger President, you can get those for 40 or less, and they are. I still have 2. They're phenomenal.
If the President XT is on sale,
yeah, for sure. XT. Yeah, agreed. But for your price point, $35, $40, you can get a Fluger President. And then line, I recommend, especially if you're new,
12-pound fluoro.
Yes, don't get braided. You'll get pissed. And then
you don't need it on a spinning one. But then to start,
then you need a pair of pliers, like fishing pliers,
$10
with cutters. They gotta have cutters, but they don't have to be fancy. Any pair. I use my Husky just pliers.
Right.
It's like but a plier. You need a pair of pliers that will help you get. They'll help you safely get hooks out of fish. That will help you cut line. It helps you so many ways. And then you just need one plain old box.
One tackle tray or one tackle box?
I actually would just get you. I wouldn't even, honestly, if I could do it all over again, I would get a really cheap sling pack and I'm get one.
Or use any backpack you have.
Yeah, I think a sling.
I use backpacks all the time.
Yeah. Well, something that is going to strap onto you, whether it's a hip pack, a backpack, a sling pack, whatever you feel like is going to be more comfortable for you. Yeah. But a very cheap one. Do not get. It doesn't need waterproof. It doesn't need to be anything. It just needs to literally hold your shit.
100%.
And then you get one, $10 medium size Plano box, and that's what you put all your stuff in.
Yeah.
That will take. If you
waterproofing.
You're talking like stuff, a total like $200 max. Yeah. And you have.
You can do a lot of work.
You can do damage. Yeah. You can do damage. That's all I'm gonna say about gear for this.
We have much more to talk about gear, but
there's a lot.
That's for another episode. Yeah. So I'll say this: thank you for listening to this first episode of BurlyFishing Podcast.
It was freaking long.
AKA Fishing with Friends, AKA Fishing Buddies, AKA help us name this podcast.
That's a good call.
And I will say this too: You guys can help us out if you rate this podcast. If you like what we're talking about, if you want to hear more about what we're talking about, give us 5 stars.
Highest number of stars possible.
All of the stars, please, on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever you're listening to this podcast on. And we appreciate you listening 100%.
Because it helps us.
It does. It does. If you guys rate us, if you leave comments, that helps us better determine the topics and stuff that we're going to talk about. And we only want to talk about things that help people. So, obviously it controls the direction of this whole shebang. And then obviously, too, if you guys are watching on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe there. If you're not watching on YouTube, go check it out.
Help us give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want.
That's it.
And you're the people, so tell us what you want.
Help me help you.
Hit me up in the comments. All right, we'll see you guys out there.
Later.